any of the civil rights activists from the past or present involved in stopping Cop City?
Mostly not in good ways. So the city of Atlanta, this is now 2 or 3 months ago, when it felt the pressure. One of the things that we all have to be proud of is that we've pushed the city and the state to the brink in terms of trying to stop this project, where they've belatedly, but still, have tried to pull out all the stops to try to show that there is some public sentiment for the building of Cop City. So they just recently, about 2 months ago, did a huge press conference on the steps of City Hall, where they brought out all the past mayors, city council members, business leaders, some so-called Black celebrities, mostly Black men dressed in suits, including Andy Young, who literally was wheeled out to be there, to say that they were all in favor, and Black ministers and preachers also, to say that they were all in favor of Cop City. So the Black bourgeoisie, the Black upper class, have all come out and rallied behind the mayor and rallied with the corporations and developers to try to get this passed. This has truly been a grassroots effort of organizers, anarchists, revolutionaries, socialists, again, voting rights groups, environmentalists, community people. This has truly been a grassroots effort to stop Cop City. And the fact that we've gotten this far speaks to the amazing power of organizing.
This is what I continue to tell people you cannot rely on. It's really sad sometimes, Kamal, because we think back to like some of the civil rights leaders and activists and things like that. And then we look at where they are today, and it's just, you just wonder like what happened to them. Like it's kind of sad in a way. I'm curious also to see, this question came from the audience. I think it's a good question. Is the problem the privatization and the politicization of the police? Is that the problem?
No, the problem is that the police, the system of policing, is a militarized force that operates on behalf of corporations and developers that works to the detriment of poor and working class Black communities. And so that, in its essence, is the problem. The problem is that, again, the police arrests, 90% of the arrests that the police make, I should say, are of Black people in a city that is no more than 50% Black. The problem is that Black folks get over sentenced. The problem is that Black people get harassed. The problem is that Black people get over arrested. And obviously the problem is that Black people get killed. That is the problem. The problem is not whether or not the police have training. The problem is not whether or not the police are good individuals. The problem is not whether or not police treat their spouses or their dogs or their children well. The problem is that when the police are called to go into communities and to have quotas and arrest people in mass or stop people, they will do that. The problem is when the police are called out into the streets to stop movements, to stop protests, to clear people off the streets, they will do that. They will follow orders, and the orders that they are following are on the behalf of corporate leaders, developers, and the city of Atlanta. They are not on behalf of the people.
Any word from Warnock or Osoff?
Warnock and Osoff came out with lukewarm statements, not about the building of Cop City. They've stayed out of that, even though we've tried to pressure them to say something. Warnock, who, at one point I help him get his first civil disobedience arrest around expansion of Medicaid here in Atlanta. Warnock, who claims to be progressive in particular, has not said anything about Cop City except that he's studying it. The only thing we got Warnock and Ossoff to come out, the two senators here, was when the Atlanta police with the Georgia Bureau of Investigation went into the Atlanta bail fund and arrested them and attempted to charge them with white collar crimes, but really was going after them as a key link to the movement infrastructure around stopping Cop City and supporting movement organizing. So the Atlanta Bail Fund has been around for 6 or 7 years. Prior to even the organizing against Cop City, it has provided bail for anybody who has been arrested at a protest to make sure that people can, one, feel safe and participating in protests, aka the civil rights movement, where folks would not have gotten involved in some cases if they did not know that there was a bail fund so that they didn't have to sit in Southern segregationist jails all night. And so we have a bail fund here in Atlanta, as many places do across the country, that help make sure organizers and activists can be free and fight their charges on the outside and continue on with their lives, as opposed to sitting on the inside. The Atlanta Way, which is part of a larger task force with the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, with the DeKalb County Police, with the Atlanta Police, with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, with Homeland Security, they decided to target the Atlanta Solidarity Fund and to arrest those who were the leadership of that fund. Warnock and Osoff came out with a statement about that, but only that. They've been quiet. They've been reserved. They've withheld any opinion whatsoever when it comes to the Atlanta, the Cop City building that we are opposing. And again, these are people who claim to be progressive, people who spoke out in other areas and other places, but not said a word here about what's happening in part of the city that they're supposed to be representing.
That's right. And some of those organizers involved in the bail fund, the media has identified them as domestic terrorists. Like, that term is just kind of thrown around now to people that are trying to actually just help people get out of jail. So that term has been pretty loose now, and they're just putting it where they want to put it. And I think people need to be very cautious of that. They could call us that too, you guys, anytime that we have a protest.
Well, part of what the other thing about what's the testing ground around Atlanta is that, as your audience probably knows, 42 people here have now been arrested and charged with state level domestic terrorism charges. It's the first time this statute has ever been used. In fact, the statute was passed because of the church killings in South Carolina. So when a white man went into the church and killed upwards of a dozen Black people, Georgia passed a domestic terrorism statute and has only now used it. And who have they used it against? Forced offenders. They've used it against people who are literally sitting in trees, in tree huts, and sitting in campsites below the trees. That's who's been the target of these domestic terrorism charges. The vast majority of folks who've been arrested, these people, neither before their arrest have ever been said and or shown to be engaged in any other activity, just to be clear, other than sitting in trees, other than having a campsite. It's akin to doing it's akin to charging a Dr. King, again, during the heights of the civil rights movement, with domestic terrorism for kneeling in front of a police station. So these folks here, again, the task force that's been created is a testing ground. How far will they get with these charges? And if they get very far, they will be bringing charges like this to a community near you the next time people decide to go out and protest, engage in civil disobedience, and do a direct action.
That's right. This is why it's important to pay attention to local politics. We may not live in Atlanta, but it could be your city next.